Hello and welcome to Data Demystified, the podcast where we look beyond the buzzwords to find value in MarTech, AI and data for marketing. My name is Kevin van Kalkeren, I'm CPO at Opmark, and in this episode we'll explore something that lives in almost every dashboard, the funnel report. Because funnels look clean, they look structured, actionable, but are they actually giving you insight or just the illusion of it? Let's find out what your funnel doesn't tell you and what you should be looking at instead. So the problem with funnel logic is that funnels, they are comforting. We can define step 1 as the home page and maybe step 2 as a category page or a product page. Step 3, the add to cart, and step 4 might be conversion. We might have different micro conversions, but at least we can see drop-off points at each step. We can calculate conversion rates, split them out, various different segments or different other dimensions, maybe test some variants. That feels like control. But how do you know why they dropped off? Perhaps you looked into some heat maps in Hotjar or studied your funnel reports in Google Analytics 4, but you still don't know enough. Because here's the issue, funnels only measure what you define as steps. And they ignore everything else. Your visitors are thinking, feeling, doing, maybe how they sidestep. What if someone reads 3 blog posts before they actually visit your homepage? What if someone compared 5 products over 2 weeks? What if a drop-off isn't a loss, but just someone who comes back later after they drunk their coffee or talk to their spouse? The funnel doesn't know. So it's a means to an end to track the performance of various steps flowing over into each other, but not the entire picture. It only tracks your version of the story and not the customer's version. And even when it shows clear drop-offs, say somewhere between step 2 and 3, you still don't really know why. What's going on at step 2? Why don't they reach step 3? Was it the copy, the layout, the timing? Something they saw on a competitor's website or a news article they read about your topic? You don't really know. You can guess, you can install scroll maps, heat maps, but you don't know who did what, or if those actions actually relate to conversion or not. We can just look at sessions, recordings and see what happens, but we don't really know the actual impact. So we'll talk about that later. But first, in every episode, we take a look at a buzzword or a common belief and we break it down.
We use multi-step funnels in our tools. Isn't it already more advanced than a basic journey report?
Yeah, so I think the short answer is yes, it's better, but it's still incomplete. They still serve the purpose of painting a clear picture about how people go from define step A to define step B, and maybe you have a couple more steps, but still it's incomplete. Multi-step funnels give you more granularity, but they still follow a very linear way of thinking. The problem is a customer isn't always behaving linearly. People bounce between tabs, they research, they forget, they orient on a different product and then come back, they return via a newsletter, and your tool logs them as new. They basically might split it up in 3 different customer journeys where actually it was just the one, but it was very chaotic. So unless your funnel includes things like repeat visits, indirect paths, content pages, delayed conversions, it is still only telling part of the story. So what should you be looking at? Because if funnels oversimplify behavior, what gives you the real picture? Instead, or at least in addition to them. You need behavior over time, the full set of behavior, recurrence and return patterns, contextual variation, dimensions about maybe the weather or campaigns, and clarity beyond the predefined steps that you thought of. You want to look beyond who dropped off where and ask how often do visitors return before converting? How many steps do they take? Which channels lead to engaged, high-quality visits, which then lead actually to conversions, which sequences tend to convert, and which don't, what is behavior that's crucial apparently to get to that point of converting, what's happening outside your assumed main flow. Are people going from step 2 to read a blog and then jump back to step 2, move to step 3, back to step 2, need a calculator tool, need more external information to come back, visit another website, come back via retargeting. And this is where HiGym helps. Rather than limiting your view to one funnel, the linear view, HiGym lets you see actual behavior patterns over time, spot recurring users who return via different paths and just join them all together in one complete journey, measure how return behavior correlates to conversion, identify what's working beyond the obvious and the linear. For instance, take the recent case of Dewey. Dewey is my subscription-based surprise book platform where we deliver surprise books based on your own taste profile. And we saw a huge drop-off in step 2 of the funnel. So people would visit the homepage and then they wouldn't really go to the actual sign-up flow. Question was, why? Because Hotjar showed us some scroll depths. We could see that the homepage wasn't always looked at fully, but That doesn't have to be an issue. Google Analytics showed us funnel reports where we could see that indeed people were not flowing in as well, but that wasn't enough. So with HiGem, we could connect the dots to see what really happened in terms of content and return rate. We found out that users who use a secondary button, so not the sign up button, but the one that says more info, were 20 times more likely to sign up. 20 times, which is quite significant. So what we did is we changed the layout of the about page, where the more info button led, to be more optimized to convert people to actually go back to the sign up flow. And that increased our influx of users by 10%. So that changed everything. And instead of just staring at that page 2, what's step 2 of the funnel, what's going on, we took in the entire context, found out that people had an actual need about more information, and we could address that need properly and then lead more people into the funnel with the right insights and the right information in the back of their heads. So if you want to sound smart at your next social gathering, here's something you can just throw out at the drinks table. Funnels don't show you where customers stop. They show you where you stop tracking them. So that addresses that the funnels are only a representation of what we think the customer journey should be in a very linear fashion typically. And the gap between where you stop tracking them and where they actually stop their journey can be weeks. They can be coming back next day or can be coming back in a week's time. They might switch channels. Their motivations might be very changed once they come back to you. Different stage of the customer journey, different awareness of your product, different awareness of the different solutions you might provide or don't provide. So you have to build with that in mind, that a funnel can be very useful to find and signal optimizations for improvement, but it's never the end. It's never the complete picture. So what's the takeaway here? Funnel reports are very useful, but only as one layer in the story, like a signaling layer. And when behavior doesn't match your assumptions, funnels can mislead more than they actually guide because they paint an incomplete picture. So to improve conversions, you need to understand what's going on in this journey outside the funnel. That's where the biggest levers live. And most importantly, make sure your tooling reflects how people actually behave and not just how you wish they did. HiGem can help you find that. So thanks for listening, and if you ever made a decision based purely on a funnel report, I'd love to hear how it went, good or bad. And as always, if you have a buzzword you'd like to broken down or another insight you'd like to talk about, send it in. We might break it down in the next episode. See you then.